A huge show of solidarity in the Southland among the local Armenian American population on the 100th anniversary of a massacre they vow never to forget. They filled the streets of Hollywood and the Wilshire corridor for what was called a March for Justice. More than 100,000 people took part in the demonstration. It condemned the Ottoman Turks' effort to remove all Armenians from present-day Turkey. 1.5 million Armenians died. The Turkish government still denies it was genocide. Today's march ended in front of the Turkish consulate in mid-city.
A day of remembrance is now a night of reflection on this, the 100th anniversary of the Armenian genocide. In West Hollywood tonight, a social justice concert was held to raise awareness to the elimination of as many as 1.5 million people. Now, earlier, a crowd estimated at around 100,000 men, women, and children took off from work and school for the Centennial March for Justice.
My mom's grandmother, she was on the roof. She saw the church was burning and her parents were inside.
The Turkish government officially denies what happened was genocide, despite repeated calls to acknowledge what historians and scholars agree was a government-sanctioned mass killing.
A massive crowd marched through the streets of Hollywood today, remembering the massacre of 1.5 million Armenians a century ago and calling on Turkey to recognize it as genocide. KCAL 9's Jeff Nguyen was at the march.
Los Angeles is known for having the largest population of Armenians outside of Armenia. Tonight, that group is asking the White House to follow the lead of this city along with 40 states in recognizing what most people call the first genocide of the 20th century. The LA City Fire Department estimates 130,000 people filled Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood during what's been called the March for Justice. The crowd grew during the 6-mile demonstration beginning in Little Armenia. People like Steve Lucirarian, who pulled his kids out of school in Irvine today so they could attend.
And we just want recognition and the word genocide to be accepted throughout.
Armenians and most historians believe the Ottoman Turkish government massacred 1.5 million civilians beginning on this day 100 years ago in a 7-year campaign to wipe out all Armenians out of present-day Turkey. Los Angeles city officials unveiled 4 signs naming this the Armenian Memorial Genocide Square on Hollywood Boulevard. But novelist Aline Ohanessian is frustrated with the Obama administration and the Turkish government for not officially recognizing a painful part of history as what Armenians call the first genocide of the 20th century.
What it does is it perpetuates transgenerational grief.
The march ended outside the Turkish consulate in the Mid-City area, where a small group of Turkish Americans gathered for a counter-protest to say the tragic loss of Armenian lives was the result of a relocation effort during a war.
When it's the war, both sides dies. We are sorry that they died, but we're also sorry for our loss.
The LAPD arrested 5 adults and 3 minors for throwing objects at the Turkish group, but overall they say the event was peaceful given the size of the crowds. In the newsroom, Jeff Nguyen, KCAL 9 News.
Massive march, one of the biggest ever in LA. Armenians protesting 100 years after the massacre of more than 1 million of their ancestors.
KTLA 5's Rick Chambers is live with more on the protest. Rick.
Yeah, Cher, Wilshire Boulevard was teeming with Armenian demonstrators today. They want the world, and Turkey in particular, to admit to the slaughter of hundreds of thousands of their countrymen a century ago.
More than 100,000 people marching through Hollywood today to the Turkish consulate here on Wilshire, marking the 100th anniversary of the Armenian genocide.
We want just justice. Every Armenian still remember this and never forget.
They won't forget the more than 1 million Armenians killed by Ottoman Turks beginning in 1915, what some call the first genocide of the 20th century, and something Turkey and the U.S. government still don't recognize. Harry Papayan, though, brought his family to today's massive rally.
We just want to be recognized for all our family and relatives that we lost. It just can't be swept away.
Most Armenians in this crowd have no first-hand knowledge of the killing. Like Sarkis Defterdurian, they rely on stories passed down from grandparents.
They killed his mom, his brother, his sister, and how they hung and decapitated his grandfather.
Nazareth Abovian was born in 1915. He celebrated his 100th birthday today and also mourn the loss of both parents.
Even at this age, I feel what it's like to be deprived of a parent's love.
Despite the enormity of today's protest, there were only 8 arrests, 2 of them coming after water bottles were thrown at Turkish counter-protesters nearby. Most of these demonstrators just wanted their voices heard and their history acknowledged.
And hoping that one day we get peace and justice.
The Pope did recently refer to the killings in Armenia as genocide, but the Obama White House still refusing to do so. Along the Miracle Mile, I'm Rick Chambers. Guys, let me throw it back to you in the studio.
All right, Rick, thank you. Many commuters blasted the protesters for blocking traffic during the afternoon commute. Police had to block off several key intersections as marchers moved along Wilshire Boulevard through Hollywood and the Fairfax district. Thousands had to find alternate routes around the protest, which snarled traffic until the crowd dispersed late this afternoon.
A mass of humanity marches through Hollywood and into the mid-Wilshire area to protest the mass killings of Armenians. The LAPD estimates the crowd at 130,000 people. They marched to the Turkish consulate on the 100th anniversary of the genocide. More than 1.2 million Armenians were slaughtered by Ottoman Turks. Their message was twofold. One, to make sure no one ever forgets what happened. The other was to criticize President Obama for failing to recognize what happened as genocide.
So we want the world, including our own president, who promised in 2008 to recognize, to make good on his promise. That's all we're asking.
Turkey